Hey everybody, and welcome back to another Max Velocity weather forecast. And in today's forecast, we're going over that flash flooding potential across portions of the United States this week, and we'll also be going over that severe weather potential near the tail end of this week across one area of the United States. I'll give you the latest breakdown on both of those scenarios and more in this forecast. Before we get into that, let's talk about what's happening across the United States today, which is actually fairly interesting. Let's begin with the southern half of the United States first, which there is a pretty elongated area of clouds right now from about Mexico and as well as Arizona all the way back through the mid-Atlantic regions on the east coast of the United States. Most of this isn't bringing a whole lot in terms of rain. If anything, most of the rain that we're seeing is really just widely scattered showers, so it's not really that impactful right now, and that's because we don't have a whole lot of moisture to go along with that right now. But over the next few days, a lot of moisture will come out of the Gulf of Mexico. That will lead to that potential for some flash flooding. Again, more on that later in this forecast. Back up on the northern half of the United States, we do have a dry slot from the jet stream, which is creating sunshine for many of you. Not a whole lot of cloud cover across areas like the Midwest. The only exception would be a little bit of some snow flurries back up into northern Minnesota and extreme northern portions of Wisconsin. And then on the western half of the United States, we do have a little low pressure system just offshore of California that is also bringing a little bit of some shower activity and also some snow to the mountain regions over there on the west half of the United States. So over the next few days, what are we talking about in terms of rain? Because again, it does not look like we'll see much right now, but that's again all going to change as we go into the next 24 hours. We'll begin to have some showers beginning to develop, maybe a couple of storms back down in the Dixie Valley, and this will really start to ramp up over the next few days as again that trough begins to move a little bit further off to the east. It'll have in the southern plains, and that'll bring a lot of rain to areas along again from about the Ohio Valley and the lower Mississippi Valley all the way back through the northeast. And by Wednesday, a lot more showers and even some storms ongoing in those areas. We could even see a lot more rain into the New England regions as well. And then by Wednesday into Thursday, we'll have a high pressure system back up into Canada, and as well as a trough beginning to develop over the southern half of the United States. This could bring the potential for maybe even a little winter storm on the backside of this trough, could even bring some severe weather, and as well as that potential for some flash flooding. By Thursday into Friday morning, this really develops into a pretty, not really strong trough, but definitely manageable enough for the potential for some severe weather, potentially across areas from Kentucky back through Alabama. So this will be something to watch for pretty closely as we head into the later portion of this week. We may even see some heavy snowfall into areas back over into the Midwest. So definitely a system to watch for pretty closely. By about Saturday or Sunday, big question mark on where this goes. It could go off the East Coast. It also could go up to the Northeast and impact areas back up in New England. But again, we'll have more on that here in a later forecast. Now, I was mentioning moisture because it is a pretty important ingredient to seeing some showers and even some storm activity, which again, most of the United States, the dew points are under 40. But again, the Gulf of Mexico, we're gonna have a lot of moisture coming out of the Gulf over the next few days. That'll start to increase our dew points across areas like Kentucky, Tennessee, really anywhere in the Ohio Valley, as well as into the lower and mid Mississippi Valley areas. That'll lead to that potential again for maybe some isolated flash flooding. So eventually heading to Monday into Tuesday, again, that trough will begin to develop across areas in the central and southern plains. Again, the dew points will start to rise off to the north. That means moisture is increasing as we kind of increase these dew points. So again, up into the 60s in areas like Arkansas, as well as Mississippi. By Wednesday into Thursday, similar story. Again, that moisture is really going to kind of stop moving that far off to the north, though. This is kind of your line here, and that's due to a frontal boundary that will kind of keep the moisture from going too far off to the north here. But unfortunately, this is going to be pretty stationary. That's all due to the fact, again, that trough is not going to be moving that quickly. So we're going to have that potential for rain over the next several days and potentially almost the entire week for areas back over in like Tennessee, as well as maybe even Kentucky. By Friday into Saturday, you can eventually see the dew points do drop off a bit, and that's due to the fact that trough will likely move off to the east, and it will eventually start to dry out in those areas. And then heading into next week, we could be talking about another little trough developing, but again, that's kind of far from now. So overall, the rain, what are we talking about in terms of excessive rainfall? Well, for right now, there is actually a slight risk for flash flooding, at least for tomorrow. Now, I would expect this to continue throughout the next several days, but for now, there is a slight risk across areas like northern Alabama, northern areas of Georgia, southern Tennessee, and northeast Mississippi. So be mindful again of some rain over the next several days, could lead to some isolated flash flooding. So over the next few days, again, rain will start to develop over the next really 24 to 48 hours. By Tuesday into Wednesday, some showers and again, some storms could even occur. I don't expect much in terms of severe weather, at least through about Wednesday or so. We could see some very marginal threats, maybe like isolated damaging winds, but nothing beyond that. Eventually by late Wednesday into Thursday, and eventually really into Thursday morning, that trough will really develop. We'll see some heavier rainfall over a much larger area, and that could also lead to the potential for some severe weather with a bit of a strengthening low-level jet and a little bit of instability. Could maybe lead to maybe like a little low-end chance for severe weather, maybe up to a slight risk, potentially for maybe isolated damaging winds, hail, can't rely on an isolated tornado or two by Thursday or Friday. By Friday into Saturday, though, this trough moves off to the east, and it'll eventually bring potentially some snow again back up into the Midwest. I'll have more on that in a later forecast. As forecast confidence does grow, we could even see that threat go into areas like Pennsylvania. But again, it's kind of early at this point. We'll keep you updated with the latest. So with all that being said, what does this mean for the rainfall out of this system? Well, again, there could be several inches of rain. I can rule out upwards of 6 to 8 inches of rain in isolated spots, but the majority of areas like Kentucky and Tennessee will see most likely between about 1 to maybe 4 inches of rain. Again, you can see the stretch from about northeast Arkansas back through a large portion of central Kentucky that could get upwards of 3 to 6 inches of rain. So again, make sure you're prepared for that. There could definitely be some flash flooding out there. Again, reminder, turn around, don't drown if you're on the roadways and you see water in front of you. Also, the temperatures over the next several days, I don't expect really any big temperature swings unless you're in the northern United States, where we might see a couple of very small cold blasts. But otherwise, all this red is indicating slightly above average temperatures for this time of the year. So nothing in terms of big cool downs is expected, at least for the most part, across the United States for the next 5 or 6 days. Make sure to hit the like button down below, subscribe if you've not already. This forecast is brought to you by Platinum Contracting.